Hey, eco students. Today we're going over one economic indicator called unemployment. So, unemployment is a huge indicator of the health of the economy. There are a couple things you need to know first before talking about like unemployment. Like when people say certain numbers or they say terms like full employment, that means like something that you might not, know right now. So, to be unemployed, you have to be under certain conditions. That means you are over the age of 16 years old. You don't have a job, no job, but You're looking for a job. You're actively applying. And so, like, let's say that you just have a job that you don't really love but you're looking on your free time. You're not unemployed. You have a job. Or if you're, they use the term underemployed. Underemployed means like you want to be working full time, but maybe they only give you like 12 or 14 hours a week or something. You still have a job. You're just underemployed. You're not unemployed. So how they measure unemployment, not all that scientific. The Department of Bureau Labor Statistics, the BLS, they cold call people like, hey, is this the Smith family? Yes. How many people are over the age of 16 that have no job actively looking? And then basically they're taking a random sample of the population to try to determine overall what that means for the rest of the country, for the rest of the population. So it's pretty scientific, just cold calling, but that's how it works. This term discouraged workers pops up on a lot of AP tests. Discouraged workers, so let's go back to the definition of unemployed. Over the age of 16, no job, actively looking. Well, sometimes the economy gets so bad that people stop looking. They give up hope. Think of, the Great Depression. They say the Great Depression unemployment was 25%. Well, it was closer to really 50% of the population. But a whole bunch of those people just, what's the point of looking? No one's hiring. I'm not going to even try to look. So that means there's discouraged workers. Well, discouraged workers it sounds misleading. It sounds like they are working, but discouraged workers are people that used to be considered unemployed because they were looking, but now they're no longer looking. So they're technically not unemployed anymore. And so they're considered a discouraged worker. Those people don't count towards unemployment. So sometimes the economy gets so bad that the unemployment number grows and grows and grows, but then it starts to fall. It looks like the economy is getting better when essentially it's getting worse. And that means people are stop looking. They've given up hope. And so they're not unemployed anymore. They're discouraged, and that's not counted towards the unemployment rate. And when we say full employment, we mean not 0% unemployment, because they're communist countries. When everyone works for the government, that's when you have 0% unemployment. But there's always going to be some. So we consider full employment to be anything in the range of 4 to 6% of unemployment is considered full employment. In fact, so much so that's considered the natural rate of unemployment. Naturally, that's where we should be, between 4 and 6% of unemployment. That's the natural rate of unemployment. So when we first started talking about PPF curves, we said we assume we're fully employed. Like when we're actually on the curve itself, like on the line, like point B is full employment, but there's still some unemployment there. It's just between the range of 4 to 6%. Anything above 6% is going to be a point inside the curve. Remember, that's labor just not being used, because in a recession, we're inefficient with our resources. We have high unemployment. And so anything above 6% is going to be a point inside the curve. Like I said earlier, there will always have some amount of unemployment, because there's different types of unemployment. There's 4 types of unemployment. Well, if you are a farmer, or if you are a department store Santa, or a fireworks stand operator, there are times of the year where you will have a job, and times of the year that is just not the right time of the year for your profession. So that's considered seasonal unemployment. And to be seasonally unemployed means nothing negative about the economy. It's just different. That's why you'll have like a air conditioning and heating repairman. You're not going to do one because otherwise you'd be out of a job for half the year. So that's why typically you do both. There's seasonal unemployment. Okay, so let's say that you just graduated college. You have all these skills and your human capital is high. And you're just looking for a job. You're in between jobs, but you have the skills of the job you're looking for. That would be considered frictional unemployment. Frictional. If you're frictionally unemployed, you have the skills that are required to get a job. You have the skills in the field that you're looking. You just haven't gotten a job yet. So if I was to quit and become if I was to look for a teaching position, like a social studies, economics, or psychology teaching position at another school, I would be frictionally unemployed because I have the skills to do that. But if I don't have the skills, maybe because of technological advancements, maybe I used to work in a factory and I don't know, I screwed toothpaste caps onto the toothpaste bottles, and now a robot does that job. And so the skills that I have are no longer needed because the robot does it. Or let's just say that forget technology, I just am looking to, maybe I want to be a counselor. Well, I don't have the skills and the education and the certification to become a counselor. So that's not frictionally unemployed. That's when I do have the skills. When you don't, then it's called structural unemployment. Structural unemployed. You don't have the skills necessary for the job market you want. So you're going to have to either go back and get trained, or you're going to have to increase your human capital in some way. These three at any given time of the year, if you add these three unemployments together, you're going to get that 4 to 6%. That's natural. It's a natural rate of unemployment. These three will always have 4 to 6%. It's when you get the fourth types of unemployment, that's when there's a problem. That's when you're going to be at a point inside your PPF curve. That's at a point of a recession. It's called cyclical unemployment. And you get laid off because of a downturn in the economy. Because of a recession, your job, you get fired or you get laid off or something. And they call it cyclical unemployment because of the business cycle. Because cyclical unemployment is cyclical. It happens in a cycle because recessions happen in a cycle. And so that is whenever you get above 6%. So if we had 6.5% unemployment, I know that 6% of that is natural. I can tell you this 0.5, that's above our natural rate. And so I know that 0.5 must be coming from cyclical. So we would have 0.5 cyclical unemployment if that's the case. Which kind of brings me to something called Okun's Law. Okun's Law explains the relationship between unemployment and GDP. That there's like a constant relationship between those things. Here, let me get rid of this. Here's Okun's Law. It's kind of wordy, but it says for every 1% increase of the unemployment rate, so above the natural rate, so if it goes from 8% unemployment to 9% unemployment, there'll be a roughly 2% decrease in GDP. And so GDP will fall 2% because of a 1% increase of unemployment, and vice versa. If unemployment rates go from 9% back to 8%, GDP will go up by 2%. So there's the ratio of 1 to 2% of unemployment and GDP change. That's Okun's Law. And you can see that in history with data and graphs and things like that. Okay. Make sure I said everything I needed to say up here. All right, there's a couple equations for unemployment that you need to know. First off, the labor force. Not everyone in the population is in the labor force. Only people that are employed, that have a job, and the number of unemployed people. Remember, they don't have a job, but they're actively looking for one, and they're over the age of 16. So like stay-at-home moms and dads aren't unemployed because they're not looking for a job, so they don't count part of the labor force. Retired people do not count for the labor force. Children do not count for the labor force. Even adults that are not looking for a job, like discouraged workers, don't count towards the labor force. So let's say there is 900 people, ooh, that's weird, 900 people that are employed and 100 people that are unemployed. The labor force, I gotta switch that, is 1,000 people. So what do I do with this information? I can figure out the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate is the number of unemployed. So my example is 100 divided by the labor force. So remember, it's not divided by the population, it's divided by the labor force, which is, we just figured out was 1,000. So it's 100 over 1,000 times 100. Our unemployment rate is going to be 10%. So there will be questions on the AP test that you can easily use in your head. You are not allowed the use of a calculator on the AP exam. So this is all mental math. So it's something that we need to practice on. It'll all be numbers that you can do. So a question with like 900 plus 100 and then to figure out unemployment rate, those are actual numbers that would be given on an AP test. They're not going to do something crazy like, 1375. I mean, they're not going to do something like that. So something mentally you can do in your head. And there's one more equation when it comes to unemployment, and that is the labor force participation. This is the only one that mentions population. So, oh man, okay, let me try this again. Oh no. Okay. I need to group all of these guys together. I thought I had done that already, but group, you know what? And just let's lock that so we can not mess with it again. Okay. So the labor force participation rate is similar to the unemployment rate, but basically you're determining what percentage of the entire population is in the labor force. So you take that labor force, like I said earlier, it was like 1,000 in our example, and then you divide it by the population, multiply that by 100 to get it in percent form, and you're going to figure out what percentage of the population is in the labor force. So not everyone in the population is in the labor force. Not everyone in the labor force is unemployed. But with those numbers, you can find out some things. So you can find out employment rate, unemployment rate, participation rate, so forth and so on. So in your, oh, maybe I don't. I redid this packety thing that we've been working on. So I used to have unemployment questions in there, but apparently I no longer do. So there's your unemployment information. A couple of equations, some definitions, know what it means to be unemployed, know the natural rate of unemployment, know the equations. You don't get an equation sheet, so those need to be in your head. And we'll talk more about economic indicators when I get back. Have a good night.